bueno, zuek materialak, zukuak eta fruta hartzen duzuen bitartean, entzuten hau zuen niri. Orain, bueno, Angel Argentinatik dator eta YASMEEN Palestinatik dator, eta ez da kasualidadea aukeratu alizatea bi lurralde horiek, non azkenean elikadura buru jabetza, baina baita ere elikadura eskubidearen inguruan sekulako gatazka dago. Alde batetik ezaguna dana, Israelgo sionismo genozidak Palestinan eragiten ari duen sarraskia eta nahita kuda arma gisa ari da erabiltzen gosea eta palestinar herriari gehiago zigortzeko, bombaekin ez daukan nahikoa, gose zil behar du ere herria. Eta hemen kontatuko digu, gutxi gora bera, UAC, the Union of Agricultural Work Committees, Villa Campesinako kidea dena lurralde okupatuetan eta Palestinan, elikadura buru jabetzaren alde egiten duten lana, eta baita ere nola ere genozidioaren aurrean antolatzen ari dira honi aurre egiteko. Eta gero bestetik, duela urte bat edo, Milei boterera llegatu zen Argentinan, eta Milei bada olako eskumaldeko fasismoaren gorakada hainbat lurraldetan emon dena, baina Argentinar adierazpena. Bolsonaro egondanen bezala Brasilen, Trump orain estatu batuetan egondan bezala, Bukele El Salvadorren, amurriotarra den Santiago Abascal ere horren adierazlea da gure kilometro zeroko elementua, eta Meloni Italian, olako arazoa badagoela, gauza agenda mankomuna mantentzen dute, eta hain zuzen elikaduraren aurka egitea horietako bat da. Orduan, emongo di ja hitza, YASMEEnek hitz egingo du aurretik, eta gero Angel, eta gero ez da galderetarako, interbentzioak bai horren ostean egin nahi bai dituzue egin, baina guk uste dugu entzungo dugunaren ostean entzunda, hemen adierazi eta egin beharko duguna da elkartasun ekintza bat, hori da gehien dagokiguna. Así que beste barik, YASMEEN.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here. I'm really happy and honored to be able to share space with and learn with and from you all these next couple of days. And of course, thank you Bizilur and David. My name is YASMEEN and I am from Palestine. I got here yesterday. You all know what's happening right now in Palestine, but I'm going to talk a little bit about what is going on specifically and related to our food systems and how that is so core and central to everything that is happening, to settler colonialism, and to the ongoing genocide. We are 401 days into the Israeli genocidal war, and we are 76 years into the ongoing Israeli settler colonialism, land theft, targeting of indigenous peoples, targeting of indigenous food systems, and targeting of Palestine. And day by day, the intensity of this Israeli settler colonial regime across all of Palestine, across the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, the territories occupied in 1948, all of Palestine from the river to the sea, continues to rapidly escalate, causing unprecedented suffering and devastation for all Palestinians. Through systemic violence and resource blockades and targeted destruction of farmland and infrastructure, the Israeli occupation has manufactured and continues to manufacture and reinforce a human-made famine in the Gaza Strip and severe levels of food insecurity in the West Bank. And Palestinian farmers, the stewards of the land, and the lifeline for food production, the lifeline of Palestine, have borne and continue to bear the brunt of this devastation, with our livelihoods and cultural heritage and food systems and sustenance targeted in an effort to erase and destroy Palestinian presence and self-reliance. Israel is a settler colony. We all know that. And we all know that settler colonialism entails the elimination and the forced displacement of an indigenous people of a land, and an attempt to replace them with a settler population. So the basis of settler colonialism is land theft. It's all about the land. And as a settler colony, as the world is witnessing, and as we have lived through and died from for over 76 years, a settler colony will do whatever it takes to forcibly take that land. And that includes destroying it, exploiting it, and genociding its people and its neighbors. So this targeting and disruption and destruction of Palestinian food systems is a tactical and deliberate strategy of Israeli settler colonialism that is attempting to sever the indigenous relationship with and interdependence on the land, no matter the consequences, whether the tens of thousands of martyrs in the past year alone, or the hundreds of thousands of metric tons of climate warming emissions produced by Israel in the past year alone. The Israeli genocidal war has exacerbated its long-standing structural violence against Palestinian rural communities, targeting both land and resources. And this use of food and essential resources as weapons of war is, of course, a hallmark of the Israeli systematic violence against Palestinians. The destruction of key agricultural infrastructure combined with a 17-year blockade on the Gaza Strip has destroyed the Gaza Strip's ability to sustain itself. This is part of the Israeli occupation strategy, weaponizing food to create a state of famine in Gaza as an intentional, calculated act of brutality aimed at starving us into elimination. The genocidal war has totally devastated Gaza's agricultural sector. FAO and UNOSAT assessed the damages from October 2023 through September 1st. This is 2.5 months old, this data. And that data, with satellite imagery and data, shows that around 70% of cropland and agricultural land in the Gaza Strip is destroyed. This is, again, a conservative estimate based on satellite imagery, and is 2.5 months old. Northern Gaza, which for over a month has been totally cut off. Anyone who tries to leave their home or move is shot and killed, is experiencing the highest proportion of agricultural devastation. It's no coincidence that Israeli settlers across the occupation are planning settlements and beachfront properties in the Gaza Strip, specifically northern Gaza, where they aren't allowing in food. Around 10,183 hectares out of 15,053 hectares of agricultural land in the Gaza Strip have been destroyed, at least. Critical components of food production, including orchards and field crops and vegetable production and herders and all facilities have been destroyed, targeted, intentionally. There is no food availability, incredibly minimal entry of aid into the Gaza Strip. This is, again, manufactured by the occupation. There is no access to the very minimally available food. The Food Consumer Price Index, the CPI, increased 312%. So even what is very minimally available in some parts of the Gaza Strip, people can't access. There's total destruction of every sector, healthcare. So if people are alive and get a toothache, my cheek is swollen, I have a little toothache right now. if I didn't go to the dentist, what would happen to me? People in Gaza can't access basic health care. Education, this is the second year where children have not gone to school. Housing, the majority of buildings in the Gaza Strip have been destroyed. Water, there is not clean water. Sanitation facilities, all destroyed. The most recent, which is the Israeli parliament's attack on the UN Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, which is the primary service provider for Palestinians, the Israeli attempt to make it illegal. So we see the Israeli occupation strategy of attacking Palestinian sustenance and livelihoods from all fronts, not only making it impossible for us to sustain ourselves on our land, but cutting us off from any lifeline or support or contact. By deliberately destroying all infrastructure for Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, the Israeli occupation has been and continues to aim to ensure that those who are not, they do not massacre with their bombs, will be killed by starvation, dehydration, disease, all of which are preventable, and all of which are happening as we speak. On October 10th, 2023, a year ago, UAWC put out a statement about the Israeli occupation's use of starvation as a weapon of war. The stewards of the land knew from the very beginning what they were doing. Our colleagues and community members in Gaza were telling us they're targeting the food systems from the very beginning. And here we are 401 days later, and the IPC Famine Review Committee is still debating the semantics of whether or not famine is existing. The international systems that purport to support or are in place to protect us are either miserably failing or they aim to support the entities that put them in place, which are not us. Michael Fakhri, the UN Special Rapporteur on the Right to Food, says that the death of the first child from malnutrition and dehydration is the clearest indication of famine. This happened a long time ago in Gaza. And as the Israeli occupation continues to carry out its genocidal war in the Gaza Strip, it has intensified the same systems of colonial oppression in the West Bank of Palestine, which is where I live. And these are designed to uproot Palestinians, erase our presence, dismantle our livelihoods. So while the Israeli occupation's tactics differ in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, we are both facing manifestations of active settler colonialism aimed at ethnically cleansing indigenous Palestinians from our lands. And Palestinian farmers, herders, and rural communities are enduring an unprecedented onslaught of Israeli settler violence, land theft, and destruction in the West Bank. Palestinian peasants are facing relentless Israeli settler violence. And this Israeli settler violence is coupled with land theft. When I go visit my family in my village in Jenin, from the city of Ramallah where I live, that journey, which should take 2 hours, can take 7. We could get attacked by settlers multiple points along the way. 1 week from the week or 2 weeks before, I can notice new settler outposts on the way, expansion of settlements. We are witnessing active settler colonialism happening in front of us. Settlers, with the material and ideological support of the Israeli government and its co-conspirators, namely America, are regularly uprooting and cutting down trees, poisoning crops, blocking access to farmland, physically attacking Palestinians, forcibly displacing Palestinians. There have been over 1,200 Palestinians forcibly displaced by Israeli settler attacks in the West Bank. There have been tens of communities that have been destroyed. These villages are now displaced communities, and settlers have taken over. This has happened in the past year. And along with the constant violence of Israeli settlers and the Israeli occupation forces, the IOF, the ongoing military blockdown of the West Bank, rapidly increasing settlement expansion, there's also the imposition of about 800 movement obstacles which restrict our movement within our own land. And these are all designed to systematically disenfranchise Palestinians and specifically violently prevent rural communities from harvesting or even reaching their land. And by devastating land and homes and vital infrastructure, these attacks not only endanger lives, but threaten livelihoods and continued presence on our land. Because they know that if a people cannot sustain themselves on their land, how will they survive? It is not a coincidence that this colonial violence systematically targets Area C of the West Bank. Area C of the West Bank is the majority of the West Bank. It is the most fertile part. It is historically the food basket. And it is the part of the West Bank that is under total Israeli military and civil control, and the Israeli occupation has been continuing to steal land and build new settlements on that. This is targeting rural communities and our food basket. This is targeting our sustenance. And this is strategic. I also want to share that we are at the end of the olive harvest in Palestine, which is October, November. The olive harvest is a very significant season for Palestinians, culturally, socially, economically. Last year, the Israeli occupation prevented most Palestinians from harvesting their olives. Most olives in Palestine went unharvested. Thousands and thousands of Palestinian families' livelihoods rely on the olive harvest. This year, as the harvest comes to an end, we have experienced perhaps the most violent harvest. Every single day, Israeli settlers attacking Palestinian farmers, families, communities, as they harvest their lands. In the village of Fakou'a in Jenin, the Israeli occupation shot and killed a 59-year-old woman in her back while she was harvesting olives on her land. And this is just one example, one of the martyrs. Our struggle for food sovereignty is necessarily interconnected with our struggle for our national sovereignty and self-determination. And that is part of why the Israeli settler colonial disruption of Palestinian food systems has been ongoing since pre-1948. This deliberate and calculated targeting of food systems is ingrained in settler colonialism. And we affirm food sovereignty as the guiding framework to liberation. Because in order to have food security, a basic right, there must be food sovereignty. And in order to have food sovereignty, we must have sovereignty over our land and our natural resources. In order for that to happen, Palestine must be free. So a free Palestine is a prerequisite to any type of justice. In the face of this systematic destruction, the need for international intervention has been more urgent than ever, every day. We continuously demand that the international community abide by their obligations and, at the very least, sanctions and arms embargo. But we know that those who created and enforced these systems that oppress us, that created the Israel and uphold the Israeli settler colonialism of Palestine, will not be the ones to liberate us. We know that we will not be free by asking for permission. We will be free because we liberate ourselves. And that liberation is a collective liberation, where my liberation is your liberation, is ours, is theirs. And with grassroots global movements, we will be able to liberate ourselves. And we will be free. UAWC, the Union of Agricultural Work Committees, we have, of course, our operations the past year have significantly changed. Our offices in the Gaza Strip have all been bombed and destroyed. In the very first week of the genocide, one of our colleagues and her family were on a designated evacuation route, leaving Jabalia refugee camp when the Israeli occupation bombed and killed them all. We've lost countless farmers, fisher people, community members. Despite all of that, we have been continuing a community support campaign in the Gaza Strip for 13 months now. And this campaign, we're very, very proud that we've been able to support our community, distributing almost 53,000 food parcels, providing 14,400 cubic meters of water, providing 13,000 hygiene kits. And this type of collective and communal work is the path to liberation and to food sovereignty in the face of settler colonialism. The Palestinian relationship with the land is not abstract, it is very material. We know this. It's a symbiotic relationship. It's not just symbolic. It's not a transactional relationship, it's reciprocal. It's not about what we get from the land, it's about what we give to the land. And we are caretakers of that land. And so the situation is catastrophic. But we are a steadfast people. And we have a responsibility to care for our land and for each other. And we will continue to do so until and long after liberation.